the city no longer truly breathed. It sighed in bursts, between the screech of cold rails and the gasps of rusted valves. Varnheim rose in stacked layers, piled like an engine that had never been meant to stop. And yet, everything had seemed suspended since the war. No one really knew how it had started. Some spoke of an attack, others of an energy sabotage. But what was certain is that one day, the machines of the East rumbled, and the magic of the West answered. For 7 years, the city tore itself apart from the inside. Even the sky seemed to have split. So they built the wall. Not a border, but a fracture. 30 meters high, reaching down to the city's roots. A wall of steel and copper. Since then, no one crossed. In the East, the Guild had imposed its logic, plans, protocols, controlled networks. In the West, the surviving communities had gathered around the old binders, practitioners of the magic of flows. Two mutilated halves of the same city, each convinced it could live without the other. Alek worked in the Guild of Transmissions, in a repurposed old relay station. He maintained the active lines. But what really drew him were the dead floors, where dials pulsed without source, where machines still vibrated for no clear reason. He spent hours listening to the click of old components. He touched them like out-of-tune instruments. Sometimes, he thought he heard a vibration no one else could have detected. That morning, beneath the acid mist, he climbed to the forbidden top of the relay. A broken antenna awaited him up there, like a forgotten relic. He didn't yet know that by placing his hand on it, he would fall into a breach the wall, even after all these years, had never truly closed. The wind howled through loosened cables. The antenna seemed dead, oxidized by years and acid rain. Alek thought he'd find silence there. But this time, there was a vibration. At first faint, almost a caress in the ear. Then a breath. A word. A voice. She didn't speak his language. More like a gentle wave, strange, filled with bearing silences and inflections that seemed to tell more than a message. Each syllable vibrated like a memory, as if it touched a part of him he had forgotten. The voice spoke without expecting an answer. It said simple things, or so he thought. Things that eluded him, but whose intent was clear: comfort, solitude, persistence. Then, suddenly, it stopped. She had realized. On the other side, the speaker had felt she was being listened to. A pause, then a shift in tone. She asked who he was. Her voice changed, more firm now, almost dry. Not angry, but wary, the kind of wariness the people of the West reserved for those from the Guild. Alek answered carefully, stating she was transmitting on a forbidden frequency. He expected silence, maybe a cutoff. But the voice returned, lighter, almost teasing. She mocked him, as if he were a clumsy intruder who had stumbled into a dream he couldn't understand. He didn't know how to respond. She was from the West. A binder, maybe. One of those witches said to enchant objects and corrupt flows. And yet, he stayed. He listened. And she stayed too. For a long while, they continued exchanging words, throwing half-jokes at each other, the clichés they had each been taught to believe. She accused him of having a copper heart and thoughts shaped by gears. He replied that she probably talked to trees and slept in ruins whispering spells. It was mocking, sharp, but never cruel. Each sentence sounded like a duel disguised as a game. And beneath the jabs, there was real curiosity, a desire to know if the other was truly what they'd always been told. Then, in an unexpected lull, he dared to ask her name. And she simply replied, Lyra. Lyra had never really believed voices from the East still existed. Not truly. She'd been taught that they spoke in numbers, breathed through filters, and had replaced memory with protocols. And yet, that evening, he was still there. The frequency vibrated like a well-tuned string. She connected in silence, attentive. On the other end, Alek's voice asked her questions. Not to exchange, to understand. It unsettled her. He had asked what she did, and she had replied, "Clockmaker." But he hadn't understood what that meant here. She didn't fix time, she awakened objects. She searched for the trace of time in gears, for memory etched in metal. She bound what still wanted to function. He seemed curious, but skeptical. Like all people from the East. He asked questions about the war. She told him what she knew, rumors. The East had accused the West of corrupting energy flows. The West had replied that the machines were stealing the world's soul. And between them, the war. Tall, cold, impossible. She asked him what he saw of the West from his side. He replied, "Nothing. A constant fog." That made her laugh, even though it wasn't funny. He didn't understand her way of thinking. She drifted from idea to idea, like someone following an invisible current. She sensed his unease, his surprise. And yet, he stayed. He returned. He didn't treat her like an enemy. And in that tiny sliver of connection between them, Lyra felt a new vibration. Not magical. Human. Alek hadn't slept. For 2 nights he returned to the relay under the guise of maintenance, but submitted no reports. Officially, he was checking surface harmonics. In truth, he was tinkering with the antenna like a wave thief. Obsessed with a voice that shouldn't exist, he had tried tracing the signal, understanding how a frequency forgotten since the war had reactivated without source or beacon. He recalibrated the filters, reversed polarities, opened sealed plates. Nothing. No rational explanation, except one. The wall wasn't as sealed as they claimed. He had grown up certain of it. Nothing passed through. No breath, no sound. The wall was more than a barrier. It was an inviolable frontier. And yet, a voice had passed. A free voice, strange, that spoke of living gears and memory woven into copper. Lyra. He only knew her first name, but already his mind sought her frequency, her rhythm, her voice. It wasn't her voice that obsessed him. It was her way of telling the world. He told no one, especially not Ingrid Vensholt, his former partner. She worked 2 levels down in the amplification workshops, always precise, always direct. Ingrid knew him too well. She would read his turmoil in his silences, in the cadence of his gestures. She had that irritating ability to guess what he wouldn't say. Even after all this time, he erased his logs, lied in his reports, masked his roots. He knew it was only a matter of time before Ingrid noticed something, but he couldn't stop. He had started repairing other antennas, even older ones. They remained silent. Only that one frequency still vibrated. And in that vibration, Alek felt something stirring in him. A crack, perhaps, or a calling. Lyra didn't know why she kept coming back. But every day, at the same hour, she connected the cables between broken towers and waited. Alek's voice returned, a little more confident, a little less filtered. He spoke with that mechanical precision that made her smile. He was puzzled by her vague terms, her habit of naming things by feeling rather than function. He wanted to understand what a watch that sighs was, or a machine that refuses to obey because no one listened to it. She laughed and replied, not always staying on topic. He believed everything had a plan. She lived in a world where things held memory, not manuals. He didn't grasp her way of jumping from subject to subject, but he stayed. And so did she. She told Nayla, though she left out that he was from the East, not really to seek advice, just because she had to tell someone. Nayla didn't live at the center of the community. She settled on the edge, among ruins, always a little apart. When an object went silent or a child babbled feverishly, people went to her. She listened more than she spoke. It was she who had taken Lyra under her wing and taught her to hear the harmonics of flows. That day, Nayla placed a hand on the wood of the bench and closed her eyes. Then she whispered, "If he truly listens, he'll hear what you don't say." Since then, Lyra no longer questioned it. She connected, spoke, sometimes laughed alone. She didn't know where this voice would lead, nor why it resonated so precisely. But she felt, in each breath from Alek, in every shared silence, a whisper she recognized without ever having heard it before. The wall was still there, but sometimes it felt less tall, less cold. And each day the blinders they'd placed on her loosened their grip, and she drifted away from the distorted fables they'd fed her. Those manufactured shadows meant to stifle the other side's light. Solenver walked through the guild corridors like one crosses a front line, straight, precise, without letting anything spill over. His dark jacket bore the emblem of strategic networks, a unit even the technocrats avoided contradicting. He wasn't an engineer nor a soldier. He was the in-between, the sharp bridge between information and authority. For 3 days, an abnormal disturbance had been detected on the lower band, a dormant frequency, officially banned since the year of the sealing. Unofficially, no one cared. Until now, the readings were unstable, too clear to be parasitic noise, too faint to come from a guild machine. Something was emitting, but irregularly. Something clandestine, perhaps from the other side of the wall. Ver had seen it coming. He had always preached rigor, control. He claimed the wall wasn't sealed enough, that the interferences weren't just technical. Ideas could travel, and ideas, he said, are deadlier than bombs. He studied the maps. An old relay, deactivated for 20 years, seemed to be resonating again. Perched high, difficult to monitor, the perfect place for an act of negligence or betrayal. His superiors were listening to him now. He spoke of the return of the fluid threat, of a slow contamination of rational dogma. He didn't need proof. He had precise words, a steel gaze, and a logic so tight it crushed all contradiction. Ver ordered a scan of local connections, discreet, swift. Every anomaly would be logged, every name recorded. It wasn't a witch hunt, he said. It was a defense strategy against ideological infiltration. In his mind, the war wasn't over. It had simply found another voice. Lyra's voice that night had a different tone, slower, as if each word carried more weight than usual. She spoke of a childhood memory, of a bark talisman she had worn around her neck until it disintegrated in the rain. Alek, on the other end, stayed silent long after hearing her. The next day, he had no words, so he sent something better, a piece of copper, worn and polished. Its engraving faded from the constant play of his fingers. He slid it into the beak of his strangest invention. Core, a thread-like automaton with the air of a mechanical bird, fast as an electric impulse, designed to slip through ruins and wires like a spirit in the machine. Sending Core westward was already considered treason by guild standards, but worse still, Lyra had to agree to receive it, and for that, she had to tell him where she was, a precise location, an absolute taboo according to the elders of the Free Zone. In her camp, whispers said guild agents hunted binders to dissect them, that any hand stretched from the east was just a disguised trap. In his, they claimed the witches of the West stole rare parts, diverted flows, and infested frequencies with their strange rites. But she gave him a drop point, and he sent Core through the abandoned network. When she received the talisman, she said nothing at first, just a smile, then a whisper. They both knew what they had done. They had reached out beyond the laws, and in that forbidden gesture, a promise had been born, to believe in each other more deeply. In the first golden light of morning, Therendal's tall silhouette glided between the arches of the Temple of Flows, black robe embroidered with pale symbols, face hidden beneath a veil. She was never seen without it. She said too many faces had been burned during the war for hers to deserve being shown. Once a first-cast binder, Theron had become the voice of the flow, guardian of the rights, protector of the West. Under her guidance, the closing chants had spread like wildfire across the villages. Long incantations meant to ensure the wall remained deaf. She spoke little, but when she did, all listened. Her authority came not from strength, but from unshakable faith. Magic was sacred, fragile, and every flaw in its cycles threatened the world's balance. The East, she said, had torn out its roots, cutting itself off from the living. Their machines smothered the ether. Their science sought to force where the flow required listening. In recent days, she had sensed a new tremor, a vibratory breach, tiny, almost imperceptible, but real. The most sensitive chanters spoke of a parasitic breath in the waves, a metallic whisper between verses, and that Theron could not ignore. She summoned an additional ceremony, ordered the reactivation of the Watchers. What she perceived was not yet a danger, but an echo, and every echo comes from a call. If someone is trying to cross the silence, she said, it's because someone, somewhere, is listening. She didn't know who nor how, but she could feel it. The wall was alive, and what it whispered carried the poison of a forgotten truth someone wished to protect. The day before, Kor had flown like a tin arrow. Since then, Alek couldn't push the thoughts away. The automaton had flown faster, more precisely, more freely than ever. It was a demanding model, sometimes temperamental, but he knew every gear of its mechanism. And nothing, absolutely nothing, should have allowed for that kind of perfect trajectory. He'd reviewed every formula, every energy pulse, every micro-wing adjustment. Everything checked out, and yet it defied his understanding. He imagined Lyra's fingers brushing Kor, the way she whispered to metal like calming a child. She spoke of intent, of breath, of harmony, words that held no meaning in his world, vague, misty words, but perhaps not empty. Since she had touched it, Kor seemed inhabited. Was it her energy? Or was it him who was changing, starting to see differently? He dared not believe it, but he could no longer deny the signs. And most troubling of all, he liked it. They had taught him binders manipulated, that they bewitched matter to subjugate minds. But Lyra didn't seem like a witch. She laughed too loudly, doubted too quickly. She recited no truths. She sought them clumsily. Was she the exception, or was it the story he'd been told that was twisted? Maybe the wall wasn't there to protect. Maybe it was there to isolate, to suffocate. And maybe the truth lay just on the other side, in a soft voice, a disorderly laugh, and a gaze he had never seen, but which was beginning to make him dream. He didn't yet know what it all meant, but he knew this. He could trust her. And that single idea made him strangely happy. That night, Lyra spoke of an ancient living machine, carved from wood and copper, fed with water, whispers, and intention. She described its breathing, its heartbeat. Alek listened, first perplexed, then fascinated. What she called breath, he would have called current. And yet, he recognized the same rhythms, the same metallic responses to the slightest imbalance. On her side, Lyra felt Alek's words vibrate with a logic foreign yet familiar. What he named tension, she heard as the trembling of the flow, a pulse of the living, and in this echo between their languages, she perceived the same thing, a strange, unexpected, undeniable resonance. And suddenly, something changed. It was no longer just an exchange of waves or ideas, not even a conversation across the wall. No, this time, something deeper emerged. An invisible thread stretched across the silence. Lyra felt that vibration the way one recognizes a familiar current, a foreign presence, yet strangely in tune. She knew this sensation. Among her own, some binders would sometimes enter resonance with one another. but never had she imagined it could happen with someone from the East, let alone a technician. Alek, for his part, was shaken. It wasn't a current, not a wave, not a signal, just an impression, as if another consciousness brushed his, gentle and curious, like a body gently nestled against his. He didn't understand, had no words, only this sudden clarity, as if she were beside him, invisible but real, present in him like a shared thought, a silent communion of the spirit. Alek's technocratic world had never taught him to feel, much less to believe in things like this. But Lyra was there. He perceived her, not through a machine, not via frequency, but otherwise, truly. Lyra sensed he was afraid. She felt his hesitation, his disbelief, so she said nothing. She let the space fill with their shared silence. It was more than a bridge between two worlds. A very old, very fragile magic had just brushed them both. A bond, not just between two voices, but between two beings. In the Eastern transmission towers, the guild's automatons were defying their own schematics. The regulators self-adjusted before anyone touched them. The precision engine spun with an inexplicable smoothness, as if an invisible hand had polished every gear. Engineers moved about in silence, dreading what they could not name. For Solan Vare, it wasn't technology, it was sorcery. There was no other word, even if he refused to say it. An illogical force was contaminating the mechanics. A foreign logic seeped into the circuits. Invisible, unacceptable. Someone was interfering, and he had no doubt where it came from. The West. In the free zone, the channeling circles trembled even before the first breath was cast. The magical currents stirred on their own, hungry, almost untamable. Some rites completed themselves. Others overflowed beyond the drawn limits, like water held back too long. Mother Therendal felt the tension grow with each pulse from the ground. She spoke of an imbalance, of pressure coming from the east, of a disruption in the breath caused by machines. The steel stirs. It makes the song tremble, she whispered to Nyla. She saw no progress. She saw an attack. Each side, locked in its own certainties, saw in the anomaly a reflection of its deepest fear. In the east, the return of magic. In the west, the invasion of machines. And yet, no one thought to look for what, between the two, might be creating this improbable harmony. For nothing was broken. Everything worked. Too well, too powerfully, too fast. Something had awakened. Something deep, underground, inaudible. A force that recognized neither copper nor breath, but fed on both. And at the heart of this growing tension, without even knowing it yet, two beings kept communicating, like two hearts gliding toward each other in a silent dance. The first to fail was a gyroscopic compass, followed by a wave harmonizer, supposedly indestructible devices, designed to withstand all variation. They didn't stop. They forgot their function, as if the metal's very memory had dissolved. In the east, gloved hands reached out across the consoles. The interfaces refused to respond. Calculations lost their constants. Structures collapsed from within, though no bolt had moved. In the west, the binders saw their circles break, their lines blur. Some flows refused to form. Others burst forth without warning, flooding minds with visions like a tide from the void. Some saw faces, others heard voices, yet all felt the same thing. A tear. In the west, Solan Vare spoke of sabotage. He demanded the closure of analysis corridors, the freezing of listening relays. The contamination comes from an exchange point, a contact, a breach. In the east, Mother Theron ordered silent circles. Dreams had filled with mechanical echoes. Some children, waking with a start, spoke of singing machines. The balance is broken. Someone has opened a rift. Neither the engineers nor the binders wanted to admit it, but their efforts strangely mirrored one another. The East tried to reinforce matter, the West to contain breath. Yet both failed to control because what was rising between them refused to be contained. A force indifferent to their models, an ancient wave, a shared whisper. They accused, they threatened. Lists were drawn, transmissions blocked, flows severed through ritual. But the harm was subtler. It came neither from spell nor code. It came from a link, invisible, uncontrollable, and terribly human. The signal came from an old post, decommissioned since the unification of Sector 3. Solon Vare didn't like what he saw. It smelled like betrayal. He had compared trajectories, spikes of activity, interference on historic bands. A curve had emerged, fine, almost erased, but regular. A forgotten frequency, but not lost. It pulsed like a buried heart, and that heart pulsed near a name, Alek Neuralis. Solon didn't react right away. He observed, cross-referenced, had profiles drawn. Alek, rank 4 technician, psychological stability deemed satisfactory. No behavioral alerts, but one anomaly. The automaton core, excessive speed, deviant behavior, irregular trajectories, and most of all, an unauthorized passage under the wall 2 cycles ago. Solon discreetly requested access to the sector logs. A spike, slight but clear. Then a drop, silence, as if something or someone had altered the flow. He didn't summon Alek, not yet. He simply placed a behavioral observation beacon on his network. A cold, nameless spy, tasked with logging deviations. Solon didn't believe in accidents. He believed in slow drift, in contamination by doubt. Alek might not be aware, but he already bore the mark, that of an illegitimate link, a quiver from elsewhere. Solon wrote one final note in the personal file: prolonged observation, risk of doctrinal rupture, possible external contact, and for the first time, he wondered if one of them were to fall, how many would follow. The order fell like a guillotine, sharp, without appeal. Any binder who has set camp within 3 circles of the wall must be isolated. The flow is unstable. Containment is required. Lyra didn't even need to read the full message. It came from Theron Dahl, and when Theron spoke, all binders obeyed. The circles were drawn at dawn, vibratory cords laid around the shelters. She felt their presence like a dull pressure deep in her belly. Fen was assigned to watch her, young, sturdy, and loyal to Theron, not to her. He didn't speak much. He observed, always a little too long. Lyra had known him as a child, curious, free, always eager to explore and question. Now, he took notes. Nyla had tried to approach, twice. The first time, Lyra feigned exhaustion. The second, she smiled too quickly. Nyla understood, but said nothing, not yet. Lying to Nyla hurt more than isolation. She had never had to do it. She had always told her everything, even her doubts, especially the doubts. But how could she explain Core? Explain Alek? That fragile thread, invisible but real, more real than words. That bond she couldn't understand but could feel. She had thought she could tame it. Keep it quiet, gentle, harmless. But the flow reacted. The flow knew. And Theron, perhaps too. So Lyra stayed silent. She remained within the circles, repeated her gestures, her rites, as one wears a mask. It had been 7 days since they had last spoken. 7 days of silence, as if their bond had suddenly been severed. Alek didn't understand. Since Solon's order, everything reminded him of her. A glint of light on copper, a wind too soft, a question with no one to ask. He thought it would pass, but each day made him more unstable. He felt off-center, as if something essential was missing. Like an internal failure no tool could diagnose. He decided to act, not to understand, but to no longer be alone in the blur. Lyra sensed the capsule long before she saw it. Core had returned. She brushed the metal cautiously. A thin, blackened steel cylinder, sealed with 3 tension locks. No note, but inside, sounds. She locked herself in the most isolated circle and triggered playback. Alek's voice, recorded like assembling a machine, clear, methodical, almost too clean, but the words, childhood memories, images of his city, whispers he wished he had told her, and in between the silences, she heard his longing, unspoken, but real, present. She smiled, eyes misty. He had done all of that for her, and at the end of the message, I'll find another way. I don't know how yet, but I will. She didn't wait. She engraved a medallion with a double spiral, an ancient binder symbol, slipped it into Kor's beak, and he flew off immediately. The moment Alek touched the medallion, he felt it, a soft warmth, a presence, as if she had brushed against him. He didn't smile, but for the first time in a week, he felt at peace. In the shadows, Fen watched Lyra. She listened to the capsule again and again, seated cross-legged, eyelids closed, a faint smile on her lips. Fen noted the object, noted the expression, but said nothing, not yet. It was Dren who had caught her. He had seen Lyra wearing that new pendant, discreet, hanging from her neck like a simple piece of jewelry. But he knew better. It wasn't trivial. He had recognized the shape, the material, the faint engravings, a memory capsule, the kind used in the East to imprison voices. He hadn't said a word, just a look, sharp and filled with a knowledge the others didn't have. Dren had lived there, before his expulsion, before returning to the Free Zone years ago, when he lived in the East, infiltrated, or simply curious. No one knew the truth, but he came back changed. He had seen those objects, and he knew what they carried. Forbidden words, bonds, promises. So he had taken her into the ancient galleries and showed her a map, a network of flows, hand-carved, reinforced with copper, vibrating. Not a simple plan, a living system. East and West weren't opposed. They answered each other. The wall didn't block anything. It channeled. Everything the guild sought to rationalize, the zone amplified. Everything the binders sought to channel, the machines made circulate. 2 languages, 1 rhythm. But it was too late to ask questions. Someone had listened to everything. Fen, still in the shadows, he waited for Dren to leave and closed the door behind him. His voice, calm and cold, fell like a verdict. She was colluding with the enemy. Lyra begged him not to speak, not to Theron, not to the others. He stared at her for a long time, too long, before giving a slight nod. She didn't understand why. Not right away. He simply said, "Think about it." Then, lower, almost regretfully, "If you can resonate with a technician from the East, why not with me?" She froze. Memories surged. Fen, the silent teenager, always there, too close, too loyal. She had never wanted to see him differently. But now, doubt had crept in, and within that rising uncertainty, another question emerged. And what if, in the East, Alek was under the same silent watch? The detonation was brief, but chillingly sharp. A guild machine, recently calibrated, exploded without warning, without overload. Copper and charcoal fragments shredded the observation walls. No injuries, but the silence that followed was met only with disbelief. Solon needed only one glance at the readings to understand. The flows had behaved as if reacting to a wave, coming from outside, a disturbance, an invisible intrusion, not sabotage, number, and interference. He ordered immediate analysis of the data, cross-checked atmospheric, energetic, and acoustic readings. Nothing added up. Nothing except a hypothesis he had never dared voice aloud. Not until now. He simply murmured, "This is not an error. It's a link between ether and matter, between the rituals of the West and the calculations of the East. A mutual resonance, and the fracture revealed more than an accident. an unacceptable truth. If a guild machine could be contaminated by mere energetic proximity, then the wall was no longer a barrier. It was porous. Solon said nothing to the council. Not yet. But he secretly summoned his most loyal technomancers. They had to prepare. The urgency was no longer to observe. They had to cut, isolate, and if needed, destroy the link before it destroyed them. Alek was leaning over Core, absorbed in the adjustments of a reprogrammable memory capsule. He was reconfiguring the little mechanical bird, turning it into a discrete message carrier, a relay between two worlds. He was no longer allowed to speak to Lyra, but he refused to let silence take hold. Core would become their voice. He didn't immediately notice Ingrid's presence. It was her shadow behind him that alerted him. When he turned, she was already there, straight and silent, eyes fixed on the opened innards of the messenger. She understood before he could say a word. "So it's you, the one who created the link." She wasn't angry, not really, but her voice had taken on that sharp neutrality she reserved for painful truths. They had once been partners, assigned together by the guild, technical liaison, shared interfaces. In Eastern culture, such pairs often came with a life union, not for romance, but for efficiency. The mental alliance wasn't separated from the daily one, but that link had broken, without screams, without drama. It had simply dissolved in differences of method and purpose. And now, Ingrid watched him modify a bird to send memories to a woman beyond the wall, a stranger, a binder. "You still refuse a new assignment." Her voice was calm but cold. For Ingrid, it made no sense, risking sanction, diverting a messenger, bypassing protocols, all to maintain a fragile link with an unknown binder. If he wanted a partner, he just had to ask. New assignments were possible, optimized, without complication, but he didn't. He remained alone, and for her, that was inexplicable. She hesitated. She could have reported him to Solon. She should have, but she didn't move. Alek said nothing either. He didn't plead. He didn't try to justify himself, and perhaps it was that, precisely, that made her doubt even more. She turned on her heel. She had not yet chosen a side, but she knew she would have to. Soon, Theron had given his orders. An ancient ritual would be performed, one of those no longer used, too unstable, too powerful. The goal wasn't to heal, but to sever. To break the resonances between flows, even if it meant shattering the fragile balance between zones. In the corridors of the tower, tension was palpable. The binders were being recalled. Anchor circles were cleaned. Magic coiled around Theron like an invisible jaw. Nayla, meanwhile, observed, listened, and waited. She had suspected Lyra for days. Too many silences, too many distant gazes, as if her mind wandered elsewhere, beyond the wall. She had investigated, asked discreet questions. What she discovered didn't amount to proof, but a strong intuition. Lyra was linked to the east, to a technician, but instead of stopping her, she had hesitated. And that night, she made a choice. She joined Lyra quietly, far from the surveillance circles. She looked at her for a long time, without confrontation. "They're going to cut the flows. You won't get another chance." Lyra tried to respond, but Nayla silenced her with a simple gesture. "Don't deny it. I don't want any more lies." Then, more gently, "I haven't reported you, but you're going to have to show me why I should keep staying silent." And she left, leaving Lyra alone with her fears and a slender thread of hope. The link was faltering. Lyra could feel it. Something was about to break. She went to find Nayla. No more pretense. She told her everything. The first transmission, then all that followed. The capsule, the messages, the bond. Alek. She listened without interruption. Then she closed her eyes for a moment. "This isn't treason, Lyra. It's the oldest and most beautiful of all magics. She spoke in a calm, grave tone. What you feel, what he feels, it's a calling. Nyala then told her about the original relay, buried beneath the wall, a forgotten ruin, a passage created even before the fracture. She had studied it, but never dared to touch it. That place would allow one final exchange. But once the wall was sealed, nothing would pass. Not even Core. On his side, Alek had made his decision. He had reprogrammed Core, inserted a new transmission module, one last attempt. He was no longer sure Lyra would receive anything, but he had to try. Core crossed the border through the tunnels, found Lyra, almost as if he had been guided. From that moment, they spoke all night. Muffled voices, memories, fragments of improvised emotions. Alek spoke with restraint. Lyra answered with spontaneity. He told her he wanted to run away, abandon the guild, the zone, everything. She refused, not for herself, for him. She didn't want him to be endangered because he had bonded with her. Lyra told him about the relay. He promised her he would reach it, no matter the cost. When dawn came, a rumble rose from beneath the earth. The wall was about to be sealed, and through the severed flows, one final message still passed, barely a whisper, but strong enough to be heard by the one it was meant for. Core sped through the tunnels, his flight jolted by the shifting intensities. Alek ran behind him, each step taking him closer to the origin relay and further from everything else. He had left only a note for Ingrid, scribbled in the margin of a report, a handful of letters for an irreversible choice. I'm going under the wall. He had no plan left, just the brutal certainty that if he stayed inside, he would lose everything, especially her. In the west, Lyra already knew it was too late. The frequencies had scrambled. Core hadn't come back, and deep in her heart, an emptiness was growing. Nyala had understood. She hadn't given her approval, but she hadn't stopped her either. So, Lyra had crossed the line, left the circles, abandoned the protected zone. Without map or clearance, the sky above her seemed to vibrate as if warned of her disobedience. She had brought only a fragment of Alek's last message, a sentence nearly erased. She listened to it, to summon her courage. Fen had joined her shortly after. No words at first. Then, a sigh. You're going to him, even now? Lyra hadn't answered. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain anymore. Fen looked away, face closed. Then I'm coming too, not out of loyalty, not out of faith, but because he refused to let her walk alone toward what might be the end. And maybe, yes, because he wanted to understand why this bond, that bond, meant so much. They were nothing but an echo in the ruins now, two desperate beings running toward a third, and beneath their feet, the earth began to hum. Solon turned the activation key. The negative resonance machine, designed to invert and dissolve the bonds between magical flows and mechanical networks, began to vibrate. A low pulse, modulated on a null frequency, spread across the eastern zone. Invisible but relentless, it started to erase the interference, burning the bridges between worlds. In the west, Theron carried out his rite, the ritual of erasure, an ancient practice meant to purge memory flows, to break old resonances inscribed in objects, places, and sometimes people. Those who had loved, suffered, shared, saw those traces fade. A complete cleansing, a programmed forgetting. Both operations, launched unintentionally at the same time, triggered chaos beyond words. Machines screamed, artifacts vibrated until they shattered. Energy lines tore apart like exposed nerves. The sky, caught in the dissonance, turned black. Lyra felt the world waver. Then, a more intimate cold, an absence, a void she couldn't name. Her mind tried to hold on to something, a voice, Alek, but even that name slipped away, vague and dissolved. The memory of their exchanges of core of the audio capsule, all of it crumbled. She saw herself crying, without knowing why. In the east, Alek felt the rupture, the absolute severing. He understood what Solon had triggered. So he grabbed Core and pushed deeper into the underground. He had no other choice. The origin relay, buried beneath the wall, was the last bridge between worlds, the last place not yet purged, the only chance to preserve what they were losing. And meanwhile, the wall was sealing itself. The tunnels closed in around Alek. The origin relay was almost within reach at the end of the corridor, barely visible before the walls began to quake. A fracture opened in the ground. A misaligned machine sprayed sparks, and Alek fell. The earth swallowed him. He screamed. Metal against his skin, the void around him, the silence, and suddenly a thought even more terrifying. He wouldn't make it. He would never hear her again. That's when Lyra felt it. Something cracked inside her mind. A burning flash, like a scream piercing through what was left of the barrier. The memories they had stolen from her came back. All of them, in waves, in bursts. His laughter, his voice, the wild energy of their exchanges. And what she had never dared to name. She fell to her knees. Fen caught her. He's there, beneath us. I can feel him. He didn't ask a question. Neither did she. They descended together through the fractured layers of the wall into the heart of the unbalanced flows, where magic howled and currents ripped apart. Each step was a wound. Each vibration shattered them a bit more, until the dizziness was unbearable. But Lyra wouldn't let go. The resonance was guiding them. When she finally found him, Alek was half buried under the rubble. He was bleeding. He wasn't speaking, but he opened his eyes. She collapsed beside him, brushed his skin. A wave burst, pure, raw. Fen looked away. That bond wasn't his. In the dark of the wreckage, they said nothing. They didn't need to anymore. The resonance spoke for them. Wounded, nearly broken, but still alive. Core cut through the night, carrying a desperate call. Ingrid received Alek's message. She understood, and without a word, she set out. Beneath the wall, Fen, Lyra, and Alek were trapped, exhausted, lost in the collapse of the tunnels. It was Ingrid who found them. It was she who forced open the locks of the fallen passage, who diverted the sensors, who freed them. She said nothing, just a look at Alek, then at Fen and Lyra, and she led them out. They emerged together, dazed, wounded. At the tunnel exit, the confrontation awaited them. Solon, surrounded by engineers and technicians, his eyes fixed on Alek. Theron, in a circle of invocation with other binders, palms raised to the flows, stared at Lyra. Two worlds, two masters, and between them, the bond that now connected Lyra and Alek. Alek, still trembling, opened a transmission from a nearby relay. His voice, projected into the air, echoed through the wall's loudspeakers. Lyra, facing the Council of Binders, called upon her magic. She didn't know how, but ever since she had rejoined Alek, everything felt more fluid, more natural, stronger. They revealed everything: Dren's map, the crossed flows, the wall that channeled rather than separated, the interdependence, neither magic nor machine, but symbiosis. A murmur rippled through both camps. They hesitated. It was a truth too old to ignore, yet too new to accept. Theron intensified the chant. Solon launched a new containment sequence. To them, this demonstration was only more proof. If this crossed resonance was real, then it was a threat to the balance. It had to be sealed. The wall vibrated. The bond wavered again. Then, without a word, Lyra turned her eyes to Alek. He was already looking at the top of the wall, where everything would be decided. They had no army, no authority, only their bond, their will. They would climb the wall, not to flee, not to try to persuade again, but to stop, to stand firm, to say no to those who believed they could sever what already existed. It would be the two of them against the world, and for the first time, nothing felt out of reach. As long as they were together, up there, from the top of the wall, the world seemed to hold its breath, suspended in the moment after. Alek stood before an ancient terminal, his fingers dancing across worn interfaces. Opposite him, Solon, unseen but present, controlled his disjunction machines remotely. Each time Alek stabilized a structure, it collapsed. Each time he tried to rebuild, Solon destroyed it. It was a war of shapes and frequencies, a mechanical dance of creation and annihilation. On her side, Lyra faced Theron. Every flow the binders tried to tear away, she held. Every weakened line, she restored. Her magic, amplified like never before, vibrated with newfound intensity. She had never felt such power coursing through her, fluid, instinctive. But they were only two, and slowly the wall began to overwhelm them. Too many ruptures, too many crossed forces. The sky split with lightning. Structures rose and crumbled in an endless cycle, and even the air seemed to bend under the weight of the dissonance. And amid the roar of the growing chaos, one truth began to settle, mercilessly. Their defeat was only a matter of time. Then Lyra looked at him. Alek, his face taut, his muscles clenched, fought as if he refused to let even a fragment strike her. He had no fear for himself. His fear was all for her. He stood there, resolute, furious, like a warrior in the heart of the battle, ready to take every blow for her. And for the first time, Lyra truly saw him. She understood what he was protecting. She moved closer. Her heart beat with a force no magic could explain. Gently, she placed her hands on his face, and before he could say a word, before the world had time to collapse, she kissed him. It was a silent promise, a vow without words. She was saying, "I'm here, we're here, together, forever." Alek froze for a moment, caught off guard. Then he kissed her back, and in that kiss, there was no more wall, no sides, only two souls, united against everything. Around them, the lines resonated. A new wave spread, not a rupture, not an explosion, rather a surge, a wave of energy that crossed the wall and swept through the entire world, and nothing would ever be the same again. Their bond was whole, no longer a mere hesitant vibration, but a deep-rooted, clear wave. Alek sculpted structures like an architect of possibility. Lyra breathed into them the impulse, the warmth, the will to connect. One built, the other linked, and from that union, balance was born. Below, Solon and Theron, tense, were still trying to divide. They shouted for control and isolation, dreaming of order and silence. But the wall no longer answered them. The wall had heard something else, because it wasn't a wall. It never had been. It was a bridge. A forgotten instrument born of a time far older than the war. A channel between two poles, a conduit of energy meant to flow, not to block. And through the perfect echo of Alek and Lyra, it remembered its purpose. Their resonance broke nothing. It revealed. The wall vibrated, reacted, opened. Its lines, long dormant, lit up like veins brought back to life. It was no longer a barrier, but a heartbeat, a breath. Solon and Theron were annihilated, consumed by their own dissonance. Rejection could no longer stand against union. They spoke of destruction. Lyra and Alek whispered creation, carried by that love that builds where others destroy. Then the rift became a passage. A wave burst forth, vast and silent, crossing streets, rooftops, hearts, machines and flows aligned like a harp untouched for years. The erased memory resurfaced, soft, slow, but sure. Beloved faces, forgotten names, vanished gestures, everything. The city, in a single breath, regained consciousness, not of itself, but of what it could still become. And atop the bridge now reclaimed, Lyra and Alek stood. She, the impulse that connects. He, the hand that assembles. Two halves of an ancient song made of dreams and structures that the world had believed forever lost. The wall is still there, but it no longer divides. It connects. At the border, where the last dirt paths meet the first metal fibers, Alek and Lyra live together. At the threshold, between two worlds, united by their love. Varnheim resonates again, not with a cry of order or exclusion, but with a shared breath. The song of machines rises fluid and vibrant, weaving its harmonics with the secret heartbeat of magic. A forgotten rhythm is reborn, steady and trembling. No one imposes. Their voices intertwine, one after the other like an endless murmur, and in the exchange they harmonize, like Lyra, like Alek, because this is what it means to love. Not to merge, nor to disappear, but to complete one another, to become greater together than one could ever be alone, to see the world through eyes not your own, to offer the other what you once thought was just a flaw, and discover it was a strength, waiting for an echo. Lyra connects, Alek builds, she dreams, he makes it real, he doubts, she moves forward, and when one falters, the other holds. They haven't solved everything, they haven't transformed the world, but they've opened it, and that is enough.